I'm Jamie Gorman, the host of Be Better at Business TV, and I'm here this morning with Charlene Hassan-Brown. And Charlene is the CEO of CASA, Children Intervention Services for Prince William, Fauquier, Rappahannock counties.
That's right.
Great.
Yes.
This morning we're going to be discussing how to successfully manage a nonprofit, and then we'll also talk a little bit about what CASA does as well. Good morning, Charlene.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I usually don't do this. I usually save the kind of introduction about a little bit more, but I think to put in context of our conversation, could you share a little bit about what CASA is and what you do in the community?
Certainly. CASA is court-appointed special advocates,
Okay.
and we work with abused and neglected children who are coming into the court system. We are appointed, as our name suggests, to those cases, and we work with volunteers, and currently we're working with more than 600 children, about 140 volunteer advocates.
Wow, 600 children. And the appointment comes from the courts. The courts actually appoint and they say we need to use these services.
That's right. We're appointed by the judge who's working with that case of founded abuse.
Okay. And you're, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but just your level of funding is fundraising and grants, right? You're not getting government subsidies for that work, right?
That's it, donations and grants.
Okay, so you're full out fundraising and grants, that type of thing.
Yes.
So full out on that. Great. Well, there's a lot of similarities in managing a nonprofit and a business. And I don't think people realize how many similarities, right? There's a lot of things. Just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean everybody's volunteering. You have employees and you have budgets and you have marketing and all those things that you have to do. But what can you tell us a little bit about what does make managing a nonprofit a little bit different?
Well, I loved your question, first of all.
Okay.
Because your question was stated in the way that most people perceive not-for-profits. What is different is public perception. They don't perceive us as a business, but in fact we certainly are.
Right.
We are just like every other business, with the exception that perhaps in public perception, because we are a not-for-profit and no one is taking home the extra dividends or profit, somehow they perceive that we should somehow get by on a shoestring,
Right.
and that we should not pay staff very well at all,
Right.
and that everything we do, we get or receive or need should come free. That's all wrong. We are
Right.
like any other business. We must pay our staff. We have to provide benefits to them. We have to be adequately staffed for the amount of service that we provide. But the big difference is we have no product, at least our particular charity has no product or service to provide to the person who makes the donations.
Right.
So it's generosity of that person that allows us to continue helping those children, in our case,
Right.
that need it.
So in some cases, I mean, there's some not-for-profits that, they can sell certain things. If they're doing a thrift store or something like that, there's actually a product they're selling, and part of that is for the product, and part of it is going back into the organization. But for yours, it's really everything that comes is going out as services to other people.
Right. I think that, first of all, there are 501 charitable organizations, all the way from a 501(1) all the way to a 501(28).
Wow.
And we are
That's
a
a lot.
501. Yes,
We
there
don't-
are.
nobody knows that,
And
right?
within those are things like our chambers of commerce,
Right.
our cemeteries, even.
Okay.
Our civic organizations, but in that 501c3 area, which is where we're located, you also would have education, religious organizations. Frankly, that area is the area that lessens a burden on government being we the people and our tax dollars,
Right.
so that we are helping those folks, we're easing the burden for society and for our government in charitable services.
Right. Well, I like what you said there about what nonprofits do is they help the government in that aspect, right? I mean, so the social services, the things that you do are things that we as taxpayers don't have that burden because there's a charity, a not-for-profit that's coming up and taking that thing.
Yes, and I think we have a slide to show, but I think it's surprising to people that charitable organizations employ 10% of the workforce in the United States, 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 the United States.
5.5%. I don't think people would normally guess that.
I am certain that they don't understand the contribution that we made. I think we have another slide that I would like for people to see.
Okay.
If we can roll that one up, 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 roll that one up.
We'll get there.
Not coming. All right.
But I think we talked about it before, and I think it talks about the amount of money that it would take if there wasn't a nonprofit there, what it would take for the government to actually pay for those services.
We had some examples of if, for instance, a charity were not making the donation of volunteer time and finding other resources to subsidize, for instance, an elderly person going into a private situation for their care or being subsidized by charity, it can cost as much as 15 times more for the government to provide a service.
Okay.
For a mentally ill person to be provided their care, it could be $100,000 a year if the government were providing it, and much less if it's coming through a charitable organization. So the tax savings alone by having charities out there are very important. But there's another thing that happens when a charity is working within a community. It brings those community resources together. It brings the volunteers who have all this wonderful knowledge, information, time to give together, and helps the very core of the culture of a community, enriches it because people are giving and building others.
Yeah, and I've worked with some nonprofits, and they get a little they're hesitant to ask sometimes for more volunteers, especially some of the small ones who haven't learned that that's where you really need to be. So what I tell them is, that is a service. People do like to serve. They get some satisfaction out of that, and that's a good thing. And so you're providing that as well within the community like you talked about.
Well, 26% of folks will volunteer their time, and in 2010 they gave 8.1 billion hours of time. And that was the equivalent of $173 billion had it been provided by the federal government, and that was donated by people's time. In addition, of course, they make other donations. 65% of families donate funds to charitable organizations to help make it possible for them to provide the services that they do.
Okay. Boy, that's great. And I know when you look at how, we talk a lot about in the business on how the economy has changed things, just over the last things and how government spending affects that. What have you seen over the last couple of years as far as how is the government spending and the changes in the economy? How's that affected your business, your not-for-profit business?
Well, once again, we are paralleling the for-profit business because everybody is struggling to maintain a market and to keep their businesses open, and we're the same way. We have been, in our case with abused children, we have seen our caseload rise exponentially over the last several years, and keeping up with that, it costs about $1,200 per child for me to provide an advocate for a year. And again, I have no product or service to offer. I just have to ask the corporations and the individuals. Individuals, by the way, give 73% of the overall donations. Only 5% comes from corporations. But in recent years, my own financial look, the landscape, just 2 years. In 2010, about 31% of my donations came from corporate funding. And then maybe about 33% of my money was coming from fundraising. Now I'm at 49% coming from fundraising and 19% from corporate giving.
Right.
So that has changed significantly. Grants are way down. I've seen a report recently that the assets in foundations have decreased by 25% over the last several years. So they have less to give.
Right.
So as we can get less from foundations, less from individuals, the reason we do more fundraising is because if the individual can give less than they used to give, then we need to give them more opportunity to give in order that we can help what this year for us is a 32% increase in children who've been abused. Right,
absolutely. Yeah, so that does have a big effect on how you operate your business. Now, one thing that impresses me, and that's very similar with successful businesses, is that you really know your numbers, right? I mean, any CEO, and including the not-for-profit, I'm just amazed when I talk to you about how much you know your numbers. You very much know your market. You know what your costs are and your expenses, which is a very important thing for any CEO.
We're really no different. Once again, we're paralleling. If I don't know where my money is coming from or not, I can't fix the hole in the dike. So I have to find those new resources or find new ways of encouraging more donors, more supporters. So I'm no different. I have
Right.
to find a different way to market my company. I have to hire different staff
Yes.
than I used to have. If you know, I'm getting an adequate flow of income in without having a marketing staff.
Right.
And people, when I talked about perception in the for-profit world, in the way that you coined your question earlier on, we're not different. We try to use different words because we know your perception is that you don't really want us to appear to be as savvy
Right.
about business as we must be. But we really must watch and be
Absolutely.
certain that we have the appropriate staff to be able to continue to help those people who need us.
And I think that's a good lesson for people that are starting a not-for-profit, because just like small business owners, they kind of come into it, they have a passion about their product, their service, the skill that they have, just like you have people who start a not-for-profit have a passion about the community aspect that they want to serve, and they kind of put off the business part and kind of underestimate the business part of it. And so I think that's a great lesson for them that, hey, if you're going to be in this, you need to know the numbers. You need to be a business person.
Well, and you'll see across the nation there are many, many, many not-for-profits, but you'll see in some not-for-profits that this position of CEO turns over quite frequently. And the reason that it'll turn over is not because they aren't passionate
Right.
or skilled at helping or doing that particular service that they're offering. It's because what they didn't come in with and what no one told them was really going to be a big part of what they did
Right.
is the business administration part, the part where you are strategically planning years in advance, putting those reserves aside so you can survive things like we've had recently, and also marketing to the degree
Yeah.
that you can bring that money into your organization. And that's a killer for a lot of people who have passion.
I see that a lot in the other small businesses as well, very, very similar. And the marketing, of course, is always big. I always get more interest when I do marketing classes, those types of things, much more than some of the accounting and stuff. So marketing is a big thing. Great. Well, I'd like to thank Charlene Hassan-Brown, the CEO of CASA Children Intervention Services, for Prince William, Fauquier, Rappahannock counties, for joining us this morning. Really appreciate your time.
I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jamie Gorman, the host of Be Better at Business TV, and I hope that you can use this to help yourself be better at business.